Hello, beloved soul. Welcome to this sacred space of reflection and peace. As you settle into this moment, allow your breath to soften, your thoughts to slow, and your heart to open. You are safe here. You are held. And you are deeply loved by the one who created you, by the angels who surround you, and by the light that never fades. Today, we begin a journey, a sacred meditation on what unfolds when life on earth gently comes to an end. We walk slowly, reverently, through the veil between this world and the next. There is no fear here, only stillness, only healing, only divine presence. When the soul leaves the body, it is not with violence or noise. It is with a breath, so light, so graceful, that it feels like the flutter of a butterfly's wing in the spring air. The body lies still, yet the soul rises, drawn upward by a warmth it somehow always remembered but had forgotten for a time. In this moment, the soul is no longer bound by pain, by confusion, by gravity. It floats, not away from the world, but towards something greater. There is no panic, no chaos. There is only a growing awareness of light, a softness, a peace that surpasses all understanding. The soul does not question where it is going. It simply knows. There is a pull, a sacred calling. And though the earth below begins to fade, the memory of love remains. The love of family, of friends, of moments lived. That love, purified and free from fear, becomes like a robe of light that wraps around the soul as it travels. You are not alone. Angels, radiant and gentle, come to greet you, not with words, but with presence. Their energy is calm, like a stream flowing through a forest at dawn. They do not rush you. They walk with you, step by step, as you remember who you truly are. This is the beginning, not the end. A beginning not of time, but of eternity. The first breath of forever. And in this holy moment, the soul begins to see, not with eyes, but with spirit. It sees the truth of existence. It sees how deeply it was always loved. It sees the fingerprints of God on every moment of life, even in the moments of sorrow and silence. As we breathe together now, let us enter this journey gently. Let each word, each pause, be a moment of sacred rest. Let your heart open to the mystery, not as something to be solved, but as something to be experienced with faith. Let us walk in light. Let us trust the hand that guides, and let us begin. Part 2. The first gate, the waiting place. There is a quiet stillness that greets the soul as it crosses the first threshold. This is not yet heaven, but neither is it earth. It is a sacred pause, a place between worlds, where time slows to almost nothing, and all that once felt urgent fades into silence. Here, the soul does not move forward with haste. There is no hurry in the realm of eternity. Instead, there is a gentle waiting, like the calm before the sun rises over the horizon. It is in this space that the soul begins to remember, not just the life that was lived, but the deeper truths hidden within it. This place is not one of punishment. It is not harsh. It does not accuse. Rather, it is tender, like the hush of a cathedral soaked in candlelight. The soul begins to feel a subtle pull inward, not downward, but inward, as if drawn to gaze into the mirror of its own essence. Thoughts begin to echo here. Memories float in and out like drifting petals on a still pond. And in that reflection, the soul sees its choices, not in shame, but with clarity. Every word spoken, every wound inflicted, every act of love or neglect rises gently to the surface. Yet, there is no voice of condemnation, only the quiet awareness of what could have been more fully lived, more deeply loved. The soul does not feel fear, it feels longing. A longing to be whole, a longing to be light. It is in this longing that the healing begins. The presence of God is not absent here, it is near, but veiled. Like sunlight behind a cloud, his love is felt more than seen, warm and patient. The soul realizes it is being invited to grow, to be cleansed not by force, but by grace. This waiting is sacred. This pause is mercy. For many, this place is what the saints have called purgatory, a realm not of fire in the human sense, but of refining flame, like gold purified by gentle heat. The soul is not destroyed, it is prepared, like a vessel being washed before being filled with divine wine. Here, silence is not empty, it is full of promise. It is where regret transforms into resolve, where sorrow blossoms into understanding, and where every broken piece begins to mend under the hands of eternal compassion. So the soul waits, not in despair, not in confusion, but in holy expectation. It is being readied for the joy that awaits just beyond the next gate. And as we pause in this moment of reflection, we too are invited to breathe, to release, to allow grace to meet us wherever we are. There is beauty even in the waiting. There is healing in the stillness. Let it rise within you now. Part 3. The purifying fire. But not a fire that burns beyond the stillness of the waiting place lies a new realm, gentle yet charged with sacred energy. Here the soul enters the presence of something profound, something luminous. It is not frightening, but it commands reverence. This is where transformation begins. The soul steps into what can only be described as fire. Yet it is not the fire of earth. It does not scorch. It does not harm. Instead, it warms deeply, reaching the hidden chambers of the spirit, softening what was once rigid, loosening the bonds of ego, pride, and fear. This is the fire of divine mercy. It glows with love. It burns with kindness. It is a holy flame that does not destroy, but reveals. Within its warmth, the soul begins to shed what was never meant to last. Old guilt, forgotten anger, unspoken shame. They fall away like dry leaves in autumn, curling and disappearing into light. This purification is not punishment, it is a gift. It is the tender work of heaven preparing a soul for full communion with God. Just as a musician tunes their instrument before playing a sacred melody, so too must the soul be brought into harmony. The discord of earthly attachments, selfishness, and unhealed sorrow cannot follow into perfect light. Not because they are hated, but because they cannot survive where only love remains. Here the soul does not cry out. It sighs, it releases, it breathes into the flame, surrendering the weight it once clung to, finally understanding that none of it was ever needed. And as each heavy burden falls away, the soul becomes lighter, brighter, more transparent. It begins to glow with a radiance it never knew it had. This is not a fire that consumes. It reveals the beauty hidden beneath layers of hurt and illusion. In this sacred cleansing, the soul feels a love it had longed for its entire existence. Not a love that judges, but one that heals. The love of the father who runs to the prodigal child, not with rebuke, but with open arms. That love surrounds every corner of the soul and fills the space where wounds once lived. You, dear one, are not forgotten in this place. Even as the fire works its gentle miracle, angels stand close. Their presence sings wordless songs of comfort, reminding the soul that it is never alone. The fire is not endured, it is embraced. And in that embrace, the soul begins to understand the meaning of surrender. And as we pause with the soul in this holy moment, let your breath deepen. Let your heart soften. Feel the warmth of that same purifying light around your own spirit. Allow it to whisper, "You are being made new." The journey continues. The light is growing. Heaven is drawing near. Part 4. Echoes of Earth. What the soul remembers. As the soul continues its sacred passage, a new layer unfolds, a gentle unveiling of memory, rich and complex like the scent of rain on old soil. Though the body has returned to dust, the essence of life lived still clings softly to the spirit. echoing like distant music long after the last note has been played. This is not the replay of life as seen in earthly terms. It is deeper, clearer, a tapestry woven from every heartbeat, every glance, every act of love or neglect, each one shimmering with meaning. In this realm, nothing is forgotten. But more than that, everything is seen in truth. The soul is not shamed by what it remembers. It is humbled. It is awed. It begins to understand how even the smallest gesture, a kind word, a held hand, a moment of silent prayer, had power beyond comprehension. These memories arrive not as judgment, but as light, illuminating the ripple effect of choices made in love or in fear. Here, the soul feels gratitude, gratitude for laughter that once filled kitchens and parks, gratitude for tears that softened the heart, gratitude even for the struggles that once felt unbearable. For now, they are seen as sacred teachers, refining the soul into something more radiant. The soul also remembers its missed chances, the moments when it could have reached out but didn't, the times it turned away from love, from truth, from mercy. Yet even these memories are wrapped in grace, not accusation. They become invitations, whispers from God saying, "Let me heal what was left undone." Nothing is wasted in eternity, nothing is lost. The soul, held gently in the hand of divine love, begins to understand how earth was not the end, but the beginning of an eternal conversation. Every act of compassion was a word spoken into heaven. Every wound, a door waiting to be touched by grace. And in this remembering, the soul is filled with longing, not to return to earth, but to fulfill what earth only began. Full union with God, complete, unfiltered love, no more shadows, no more sorrow. In this space, healing continues, light continues to rise, and the soul begins to radiate, not just with clarity, but with purpose. It begins to let go not just of sin, but of confusion. It begins to become what it was always meant to be, a reflection of the Creator's beauty. Breathe into this remembering. Let the echoes of your own life rise and fall like waves upon sacred shores. Let them soften you, not with regret, but with a renewed desire to love more deeply. Let your spirit be touched by this truth. Everything done in love remains, everything forgiven is forgotten, and every echo eventually becomes a song. Part 5. The Garden Between Worlds, where souls rest in beauty. After the soul has crossed the purifying flame and reflects upon the echoes of its earthly journey, it is gently led into a new realm, a realm of rest, peace, and divine beauty. This place is neither heaven nor earth, but a sacred garden that exists between the two. Here, the soul is invited to pause, to breathe, and to replenish. There is no urgency, no sense of time pressing upon the spirit. Only a profound peace, deeper than anything known on earth, where the air is thick with the fragrance of eternal flowers and the sound of a distant, soothing melody. This is the garden of rest. In this space, the soul is surrounded by vibrant life, lush trees, crystal clear streams, flowers that shimmer in hues unseen by mortal eyes. It is a place of quiet beauty, where everything exists in perfect harmony. The soul feels its weariness fall away, as if the burdens of a lifetime have been lifted by the softest of hands. The colors here are unlike anything the soul has known. Vibrant beyond imagination, yet calm. The air itself feels like a balm, healing the spirit with every breath. The soul is not yet in the presence of God in the fullness of heaven, but here it feels His nearness. The love of the Father is tangible, like sunlight filtering through the trees, warming the soul, comforting it. This garden is not a place of mere rest. It is a place of restoration. It is where the soul receives the grace it needs to continue its journey. It is where the wounds of life, though healed, are understood, not in sorrow, but in peace. The soul can see how each trial, each tear, each hardship was not the end, but part of the divine tapestry that led it here. In this garden, souls do not grieve. They reflect, yes, but their reflections are gentle, bathed in the light of God's love. The garden holds no darkness, only light. The soul is free to experience the love that flows endlessly from God, without the distractions of the material world, without the heavy weight of time. Here, the soul remembers that it was always meant to be more than it had imagined, more than the limitations of earth had allowed, and in this realization, it begins to feel whole, beautiful, complete. There is no comparison to what is here. The soul is not measured by accomplishments, by titles, or by material wealth. It is measured only by its capacity to love. And here, in this garden, the soul is bathed in the most beautiful light, the light of pure, unconditional love. Let your heart rest in this sacred garden. Let your soul drink deeply of this peace, and know that in this moment, you too are held in divine beauty. Part 6. The Approach to Heaven. The last step toward divine unity. As the soul continues its journey, it approaches the final realm, the threshold to heaven itself. This is not a place of gates and walls, but a vast openness, an infinite space where the boundaries between earth and eternity dissolve. It is the point of divine meeting, where every step forward feels like a step into pure love. Here, the air is thick with the presence of God. The soul feels an overwhelming sense of peace that surpasses all understanding. It is not a peace born of silence alone, but a peace born of perfect harmony, a divine symphony where every sound resonates with the rhythm of heaven. The soul knows that it is nearing its destination, but it is not filled with apprehension. Instead, it is filled with awe, reverence, and the deepest longing. In this place, the soul no longer feels like a separate entity. There is a profound sense of unity, as if the very essence of the soul is merging with something greater, something vast, yet intimately near. The separation between self and the divine begins to dissolve, replaced by a union that feels eternal and whole. As the soul draws closer to heaven, it is bathed in light. This light is not the harsh, blinding light of the sun, but a soft, all-encompassing glow that radiates warmth and love. The soul does not need eyes to see it, for this light penetrates deeper than the physical senses. It is felt in the very core of the being, as if every fiber of the soul is being touched by divine grace. The closer the soul gets to heaven, the more it recognizes the presence of those who have gone before it, those who have completed their earthly journey and now dwell in eternal communion with God. These souls do not stand as separate beings, but as part of a vast living tapestry of divine light. Each soul that the traveler encounters is a reflection of God's love, unique, yet one with all. The approach to heaven is not a journey of distance, but a journey of transformation. With each step, the soul sheds more of what it once clung to: the distractions of life, the fear of the unknown, the weight of earthly attachments. What remains is purity, simplicity, and an overwhelming desire to be fully united with the Creator. This is the final step, the final letting go. Here, there is no longer a need for self-reflection or self-questioning. The soul is no longer concerned with its past, its mistakes, or its accomplishments. All that matters is the love that surrounds it, the love that has always been there, waiting patiently for this moment. The soul does not fear being judged, for it knows that it is already loved beyond measure. It does not fear the unknown, for it knows that it is about to enter into a state of eternal knowing. And so the soul steps forward. With no resistance, with no fear, it steps into the embrace of heaven, into the presence of God. Here, in this sacred moment, the soul is not alone. It is surrounded by the fullness of divine love, by the angels who rejoice in its arrival, and by the eternal light that welcomes it home. The journey that began in the earthly realm has reached its culmination. The soul is now one with all, one with God. And in that oneness, the soul understands what it has always known deep within, that love is the only truth, the only reality, and that it is, and always will be, a beloved child of God. This is the ultimate destination. This is the final home. Part 7. The Divine Embrace. Becoming one with the infinite love. As the soul crosses into the realm of heaven, there is no longer a sense of separation. There is no more space between self and the divine. The moment the soul enters the sacred embrace of God, it is as though time itself slows and the universe holds its breath in awe. In this eternal moment, the soul is wrapped in a love so vast, so pure, that it dissolves all remnants of fear, doubt, or sorrow. This love is not the love of the world, fleeting and conditional. It is an unshakable, infinite force that has existed since the beginning of all things. It is the source of all life, all creation, all goodness. It is love that does not waver, does not depend on actions, but simply is. It is the essence of being, the very pulse of existence. In this embrace, the soul feels known and understood. There is no need for words, for every thought, every feeling is already known by God. The soul is held not in judgment, but in divine acceptance. Every sorrow, every fear, every burden is lifted away in an instant. The weight of all past struggles evaporates like mist in the presence of the sun. For in the presence of God, the soul is reminded of its true nature, that it is not the sum of its failures, nor its triumphs, nor even its earthly experiences. It is pure essence, a spark of divine light, forever loved and forever cherished. The soul no longer identifies with its earthly self, but with the eternal truth of who it is in God's eyes. As the soul is embraced by this infinite love, it begins to experience a profound sense of peace, one that cannot be described by words. It is a peace that transcends all understanding, a peace that fills the very heart of the soul, quieting every restless thought, soothing every aching memory. This is the peace that passes all earthly comprehension, a peace that only those who have been embraced by God can truly know. The love of God is not distant here. It is close, intimate. It envelops every part of the soul, every fragment of its being. It is a love that heals, that nurtures, that restores. There is no need to search for peace, for it is already here, wrapped around the soul like a soft, warm blanket, covering every wound, every hurt, every brokenness. In this divine embrace, the soul understands that it is one with all of creation. There is no longer a sense of individualism, of separateness. The soul experiences unity with all that is, every person, every animal, every star, every breeze. All are one in the love of God. There is no other here. All is as it was always meant to be, perfect, complete, and whole. This is the union that the soul has been longing for throughout all of its earthly journey. It is not a union of place or time, but of essence. It is the ultimate merging of the soul with the divine, where all boundaries vanish and only the purest love remains. In this union, the soul begins to understand the depths of God's love. It is infinite and it is eternal. It is unconditional, without reservation, without end. There is no measure of this love, no calculation, no way to understand it fully. It simply is. It is the very reason for existence, the reason for the soul's journey. As the soul remains in this divine embrace, it knows that this is its true home. It feels a profound sense of belonging, as if it has finally returned to the place it was always meant to be. The soul is no longer a traveler. It is finally at rest, at peace, and forever wrapped in the warmth of God's love. Here, there is no need for words, for the soul is fully known. Here, there is no need for time, for all is timeless. Here, the soul is whole, and in this wholeness, the soul knows it has found the true essence of what it has always sought: perfect, unbroken love. Part 8. The Eternal Song, joining the heavenly choir. As the soul settles into its divine union with God, it is invited to partake in something even more magnificent, the eternal song. This is not just a melody, not just a sound. It is the very essence of heaven itself. It is the purest form of worship, a song that reverberates through all of creation, harmonizing with the divine will and echoing through the infinite reaches of the cosmos. The soul begins to sense the music long before it hears it. It is felt in the deepest recesses of its being, a vibration that resonates with every fiber of its existence. This song is not composed of notes or words, but of love, the unspoken language of heaven. It is the song that flows from the heart of God, and now the soul is part of it, woven into its divine harmony. In this celestial choir, there is no fear of being out of place, no worry of being out of tune. Every soul, every being, is perfectly aligned with the rhythm of the song. There is no discord, no misstep, no moment of uncertainty. Each soul contributes its own unique vibration, creating a perfect symphony of divine praise. The sound is not heard through physical ears, but felt in the very soul, so deep, so transcendent, that it brings tears of joy to the heart. This song is the expression of all that heaven is, the eternal praise of God. It is a celebration of divine love, an endless declaration of God's glory. It is a song of gratitude, of awe, and of adoration. Each note, each beat, is a testament to the Creator's infinite beauty and goodness. And as the soul joins in, it feels the weight of all eternity resting upon its heart. But this song is not only one of praise, it is also one of peace, a peace that wraps the soul in the comfort of God's presence. As the soul sings, it feels that it is being held in the arms of love itself, as if the very sound of the song is God's embrace, wrapping the soul in His perfect, eternal care. There is no worry here, no fear, no anxiety. There is only the pure joy of knowing that the soul is forever safe in the presence of its Creator. For the soul, joining this celestial choir is not an obligation, it is a privilege. It is a return to the most natural state of being, for the soul was created to sing, to praise, and to worship. This is what it was always meant to do. Here, there is no sense of time. The soul is not concerned with how long it has been singing or how long it will sing. It simply exists in the moment, caught up in the rhythm of heaven's eternal song. As the soul continues to sing, it realizes that it is not just part of the choir, but that it is the choir. Every soul that has ever existed, every being who has ever lived, contributes to this eternal hymn. The entire creation, each star, each flower, each breeze, is part of this divine chorus. And the soul knows that it too is a reflection of the glory of God. In this moment, it understands that the song is not just an expression of worship, but a reflection of the very nature of heaven itself. The melody of this song flows with the pulse of the universe. Every soul, every creature, every star sings its own note in perfect harmony with all others. And as the soul joins this celestial symphony, it understands that it is not merely participating in worship, it is becoming one with it. It is no longer an individual entity, but a part of the living, breathing chorus of heaven. There is no me or you, there is only we, a unified voice rising up to glorify God. In this song, the soul is forever transformed. It is no longer bound by earthly limitations, but is free to sing with the voice of eternity. It sings not with its mouth, but with its whole being. Every cell, every particle of the soul vibrates in tune with the divine melody. And as it does, it feels an overwhelming sense of joy. Joy that cannot be expressed, only felt. This is the song that never ends. It is the song of eternity, the song of heaven. And the soul, now fully immersed in this song, knows that it is home, home in the heart of God, home in the eternal melody that will never cease. Part 9. The light of understanding, the revelation of divine wisdom. As the soul continues its journey through the realms of heaven, there is a gradual unveiling of divine wisdom, a wisdom so profound that it surpasses the understanding of the earthly mind. In this sacred place, there are no mysteries left hidden. The veil that once shrouded the divine truth has been lifted, and the soul is bathed in the radiant light of God's perfect knowledge. This light is not the light of the sun, but the light of understanding. It is a light that illuminates the deepest corners of the soul, casting away all confusion, all darkness. In this light, the soul begins to see as God sees, understanding the universe not as a series of disconnected events, but as a beautiful, harmonious whole, each part contributing to the divine symphony of creation. As the soul opens itself to this divine illumination, it feels an overwhelming sense of clarity. It no longer struggles to understand the complexities of life, for all is made clear in this eternal light. Every question, every longing, every doubt that once clouded the mind has been dissolved in the brilliance of God's wisdom. There is no need to ask because the answers are already known. The soul understands the intricacies of God's divine plan, the interconnectedness of all things. It sees the purpose behind every event, every trial, every joy, and every sorrow. The soul realizes that nothing in creation is random or without meaning. Every aspect of life, every moment in time, is woven into the fabric of God's grand design, created with love and intention. This knowledge is not the same as the intellectual understanding of earthly wisdom. It is a deep, experiential knowing, a truth that resonates within the very core of the soul. It is an understanding that transcends words, for it is felt in the heart and in the very essence of being. The soul no longer questions the reasons behind its earthly journey, for it now sees how every experience, every moment, has shaped it into the being it was always meant to become. In this moment of divine understanding, the soul perceives its place within the vastness of creation. It sees that it is not separate from God, but an integral part of His eternal plan. The soul realizes that everything, every star, every blade of grass, every human being is connected, all part of the same divine tapestry. Each soul is a thread in the infinite weave of creation, and each is precious in the eyes of God. As the light of understanding deepens, the soul gains a profound awareness of God's infinite love. It sees that love is not simply a feeling, but the very foundation of the universe. It is the force that holds all things together, the energy that breathes life into every living being. The soul understands that it was created by love, for love, and that its ultimate purpose is to return that love to God, sharing in the eternal embrace of His grace. This revelation brings with it an overwhelming sense of peace. The soul understands that everything that has happened and everything that will happen is part of a greater plan, a plan that is for its good, for its growth, and for its eternal joy. There is no fear, no anxiety, no need to question the unfolding of life. The soul is free to rest in the perfect wisdom of God, knowing that all is well, that all is as it should be. As the soul receives this divine wisdom, it is also filled with a deep sense of gratitude. It realizes that it is not alone in its journey, but that God has been with it every step of the way. Every moment of pain, every moment of joy, every moment of doubt and confusion has been part of God's loving guidance. The soul feels deeply thankful for the experiences that have led it to this point, knowing that each has played a role in its transformation, an ultimate return to the divine. The light of understanding continues to expand, revealing more of the divine mysteries, each layer unfolding with perfect timing. The soul is not overwhelmed, for it knows that it is now in the hands of God, and that the unfolding of truth is a sacred gift, given in love and mercy. The soul is open, receptive, and willing to embrace the fullness of God's wisdom, trusting in His perfect plan. In this moment, the soul understands that it is not merely a visitor in this divine realm, but an eternal part of it. It is one with the light of understanding, one with the love of God, one with the very heart of creation. There is no separation, no boundary. The soul is home, and it knows that the journey it has traveled has been worth every step, for it has led to this ultimate revelation of divine truth. Part 10. The Divine Presence. Experiencing the fullness of God's being. As the soul continues its journey in heaven, it is drawn toward a place that transcends all comprehension, a place where the soul comes face to face with the fullness of God's being. There, the soul encounters the infinite, boundless presence of God, a presence that cannot be contained or measured, for it is beyond all earthly understanding. In this moment, the soul is enveloped in the purest form of love and grace, experiencing the divine in a way that is both humbling and awe-inspiring. It is as if the very essence of God surrounds the soul, a presence so profound that it seems to touch every part of its being. The soul is overwhelmed, not with fear, but with reverence and awe. There is no place for doubt, no room for uncertainty, only the profound realization that it is in the presence of the Creator, the source of all existence. In this sacred space, the soul is aware of its own smallness, yet at the same time, it feels an overwhelming sense of belonging. It understands deeply that it is not insignificant, but an integral part of God's divine plan. The divine presence is not a distant force, but one that is near, intimately close. The soul feels that God is not separate from it, but that His very being is woven into its own existence. It is as if the soul and God are no longer distinct. They are one, unified in a bond that transcends time and space. There is no division, no separation. The soul feels at home, at peace, and filled with a sense of fulfillment that it has never known before. As the soul rests in the embrace of God's presence, it feels the weight of His love, a love so deep, so pure, that it fills every corner of the soul, flooding it with peace and joy. It is a love that transcends all human understanding, a love that does not waver or change, but remains constant and unshakable. In this moment, the soul knows that it is completely loved, not for what it has done or who it is, but simply for being. This love is not a fleeting emotion, but a powerful force that sustains the soul. It is a love that gives life, a love that heals, a love that transforms. The soul feels as though it is being held in the most tender of embraces, a safe and secure place where nothing can harm it. In the presence of this divine love, the soul feels free, free from the burdens of the past, free from fear, free from worry. In God's presence, the soul also experiences His perfect wisdom. It is as though a veil has been lifted, and the soul can see all things as they truly are. Every question, every uncertainty, every mystery that once plagued the soul is now answered. The soul sees not only the purpose behind its own life, but the purpose behind all of creation. It understands that everything has been part of a grand divine plan. Each moment, each experience, each person has played a role in God's unfolding masterpiece. There is no sense of time in this place. The soul is not aware of past or future, only of the eternal now. In the presence of God, time becomes irrelevant, for the soul exists in a state of timelessness. It is as though the soul is experiencing all of eternity in a single, infinite moment. There is no beginning, no end, only the eternal presence of God, unchanging and eternal. The soul, in this moment, understands that it is not separate from God, but one with Him. It sees that its essence is intertwined with His. There is no boundary, no wall separating the two. The soul is not a mere creation of God, but a part of God's very being. It realizes that it was made to know God, to experience His love, and to share in His glory. This realization brings with it a deep sense of fulfillment, for the soul now understands its true purpose. In the divine presence, the soul is no longer weighed down by the distractions of the earthly life. There is no pain, no fear, no anxiety. There is only the peace that comes from knowing that all is as it should be, that the soul is exactly where it is meant to be. The soul no longer struggles, for it has found its place in God's eternal embrace. It is a place of rest, of contentment, and of infinite peace. The presence of God is also one of profound awe. The soul stands in the glory of God's majesty, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of His being. It is as if all creation, the stars, the galaxies, the oceans, the mountains, is contained within God's presence, and yet He is infinitely greater. His power, His glory, His goodness radiate in every direction, filling the soul with reverence and adoration. There is no part of God that is not perfect, and the soul cannot help but marvel at His greatness. But even in the face of such awe, the soul is not afraid. It knows that God is good, that He is love, and that His presence is a source of comfort and healing. The soul feels no need to shrink back in fear, for it is held in the perfect loving arms of the Creator. In this moment, the soul is free to simply be, to rest in the fullness of God's presence, to bask in His love, and to be transformed by His grace. Part 11. The transformation of the soul, becoming one with the divine. As the soul continues its journey through the divine realms, it begins to undergo a transformation that is nothing short of miraculous, a transformation that leads it closer to its true eternal nature. In the presence of God, the soul begins to shed the weight of earthly limitations, the chains that once bound it to the temporal world. These limitations, once thought to be a part of the soul's very essence, begin to dissolve, leaving behind only the purest form of divine energy. The transformation begins subtly, like the gentle unfolding of a flower in the first light of morning. At first, the changes are felt as a shift in perception, an expanded awareness, an awakening to the reality that the soul is not merely a separate being, but a part of something far greater, far more infinite than it had ever imagined. The soul begins to see itself not as an isolated entity, but as an integral part of the vast, interconnected tapestry of creation. It begins to sense its oneness with God, feeling the pulse of divine life flowing through every fiber of its being. With each passing moment, this awareness deepens. The soul begins to feel a profound alignment with the divine, as if it is no longer simply a creation of God, but a reflection of God's very being. It begins to realize that it was never separate from God, that it has always been a part of Him. This realization brings with it a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that is unlike anything the soul has ever known. The soul knows that it is safe, loved and cherished by the Creator, and in this knowing, it finds its truest sense of identity. As the transformation continues, the soul begins to experience an increasing sense of unity with God. This unity is not just a mental understanding, but a deep, experiential knowing. The soul feels God's presence in every aspect of its being, and it knows that it is not just in the presence of God, but that it is becoming one with Him. The boundaries that once seemed to exist between the soul and God begin to blur, until there is no distinction between the two. The soul and God are one, united in perfect harmony. This merging with the divine is not a loss of the soul's individuality, but a perfect fulfillment of its true nature. The soul does not lose itself in God, but finds its truest expression in Him. The soul's identity, once shaped by earthly experiences, is now shaped by its eternal connection to the divine. It no longer seeks validation from the outside world, for it knows that it is already whole, already complete in the eyes of God. As the soul embraces its divine transformation, it is filled with a deep sense of joy, a joy that comes not from external circumstances, but but from the inner realization of its true nature. This joy is not fleeting or dependent on the changing circumstances of the world. It is an eternal joy rooted in the soul's connection to God. It is a joy that arises from the knowledge that the soul is exactly where it is meant to be, becoming exactly what it was always meant to become. In this moment of divine transformation, the soul experiences a sense of liberation. It is no longer bound by the fears, doubts, and limitations that once defined its earthly existence. The chains of past pain and sorrow fall away, leaving behind only the purest form of love and light. The soul is free to be itself, to express its divine essence in a way that is authentic and true. It is no longer held captive by the past, for it has been transformed by the power of God's grace. The soul feels lighter, freer, as though it has shed a great weight. It is no longer burdened by the need to prove itself, to struggle or strive for recognition. It knows that it is enough, that it is loved and valued simply for being. This sense of freedom is not the freedom of the world, which is fleeting and conditional, but the freedom of the soul, which is eternal and unshakable. The soul is free to rest in the embrace of God, to bask in His love, and to be transformed by His grace. As the soul continues to merge with the divine, it begins to radiate with the light of God's presence. This light is not a physical light, but a spiritual radiance that emanates from the soul's very essence. It is a light that reflects the love, peace, and joy that have become an integral part of the soul's being. This light shines brightly, illuminating not only the soul itself, but also the world around it. The soul becomes a beacon of divine love, a reflection of God's grace, shining brightly in the eternal realms. The soul understands that this transformation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. The journey toward oneness with God is infinite, for God's being is endless and boundless. The soul is continually being shaped, refined, and perfected in the light of God's love. Every moment in His presence is an opportunity for further transformation, further growth, further realization of its true nature. And yet, despite the ongoing nature of this transformation, the soul feels complete, for it is already one with the divine. It is no longer striving to become something more, but resting in the knowing that it is already all it was meant to be. The soul is not defined by what it has achieved, but by its eternal connection to the Creator. Part 12. The Eternal Unity, Living in Divine Oneness Forever. As the soul enters deeper into the realms of eternal peace, it begins to experience a profound realization, the realization that its union with the divine is not temporary, but eternal. In the embrace of God, time ceases to exist. There is no need for the soul to strive for what it already has. An unbreakable, eternal bond with the Creator. The soul, once separated by earthly limitations, is now fully and permanently united with the divine. The unity is not a fleeting moment, but a permanent state of being, transcending all that was once known. The concept of time, once so familiar to the soul in its earthly form, begins to lose its meaning in this sacred space. The soul finds itself not bound by the ticking of a clock or the flow of days, but instead existing in a perpetual state of now. It is no longer limited by the passing of hours or seasons, for it is experiencing the fullness of eternity. It is as if the soul has stepped beyond the constraints of mortal existence, and in doing so, has entered into a realm where only the eternal truth of God exists. In this eternal unity, the soul feels complete. It is no longer searching for something outside of itself to bring fulfillment or meaning. All that it has ever sought, all that it has ever longed for, is now found within this union with the divine. The soul no longer feels the need to seek validation, approval, or recognition, for it knows that it is fully seen, fully loved, and fully known by God. It is no longer defined by external circumstances, but by its connection to the Creator, the source of all life and love. As the soul rests in this eternal state of oneness with God, it begins to experience a profound peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding. There is no anxiety, no fear, no pain, only a deep, abiding calm that flows through the soul. It is a peace that does not depend on external circumstances, but is rooted in the eternal truth of God's love. This peace fills the soul completely, flooding it with a sense of contentment and security that is beyond anything it could have imagined before. This peace is not static, but dynamic, constantly expanding, constantly deepening as the soul becomes more and more attuned to the divine. In this eternal unity, the soul is constantly being refined, constantly being drawn closer to the fullness of God's glory. The soul is never stagnant. It is always evolving, always growing in love and grace as it experiences the never-ending depth of God's presence. The soul understands that this eternal oneness is not a destination, but a journey, one that will continue for all eternity. Even in the afterlife, the soul is not passive, but active in its relationship with the divine. There is always more to experience, more to learn, more to discover about God's infinite nature. The soul will never fully exhaust the depths of God's love and wisdom, for He is infinite, and His nature is boundless. As the soul revels in its eternal union with God, it becomes increasingly aware of its own role in the divine plan. The soul understands that it is not a mere observer in this eternal existence, but an active participant in the unfolding of God's will. It is a co-creator with the divine, a vessel through which God's love, grace, and light can flow into the world. The soul is not simply absorbed into God's presence. It is empowered to live and to serve in perfect harmony with His divine will. In this realization, the soul feels a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. It knows that it has been created for something far greater than itself, a purpose that extends beyond the confines of its earthly existence. The soul understands that its life, both on earth and in eternity, is part of a greater plan, one that is unfolding in accordance with God's perfect will. The soul no longer struggles to define itself or search for meaning, for it knows that its purpose is clear: to be one with God and to serve Him in every moment of existence. The unity that the soul shares with God is not a solitary experience, but one that is shared with all of creation. The soul realizes that it is not alone in its divine oneness. It is part of a vast, interconnected web of life that spans the entire universe. Every other soul, every other being is also connected to God in the same way. There is no division, no separation, only unity, harmony, and love. The soul understands that it is not an isolated entity, but a part of the greater whole, and in this realization, it feels a deep sense of connection to all of creation. This interconnectedness is not just a spiritual truth, but a lived reality. The soul feels a profound sense of compassion and empathy for others, knowing that they too are part of God's divine plan. There is no judgment, no criticism, only love and understanding. The soul sees all beings as reflections of the divine, and it feels a deep sense of responsibility to care for and nurture them as part of God's creation. In this state of eternal unity, the soul is at peace with itself and with the world around it. It is no longer burdened by the struggles of the past, the uncertainties of the future, or the limitations of the present. It is free, fully and completely free, in the knowledge that it is one with God, and that this oneness is eternal. There is no fear, no doubt, no separation. There is only the everlasting presence of the divine, filling the soul with peace, love, and light. Part 13. The eternal joy of communion with God. In the boundless peace of eternal unity, there emerges a joy so profound, so radiant, that it transcends all earthly understanding. This joy is not the fleeting happiness of moments past, but the deep, eternal joy that springs from the soul's unbreakable connection with God. It is a joy that arises from the knowledge that the soul is home, fully enveloped in the love of its Creator. In this moment of divine communion, the soul is flooded with an uncontainable sense of delight and wonder. This joy does not come from external circumstances. It is not born from the fleeting joys of the material world, possessions, achievements, or recognition, but from the deep knowing that the soul is eternally embraced by God's love. There is no need for external validation, for the soul has already received the greatest gift imaginable, the unending love of the Creator. The soul feels as if it is filled to the brim, overflowing with this divine joy, and yet it cannot contain it. It radiates outward, spilling over into every corner of existence. The joy of communion with God is pure and unadulterated. It is a joy that is not tainted by the imperfections of the world, but is rooted in the perfection of God's love. It is a joy that knows no sorrow, no pain, no regret. It is the joy of complete acceptance and belonging, of being fully seen and fully known by the Creator. There is no part of the soul that is hidden, no aspect that is unworthy. Every part of the soul is cherished and embraced by God, and this acceptance fills the soul with an unshakable sense of worth. This joy is not passive, but active. It is a joy that moves through the soul, igniting every part of its being with divine love and grace. It is a joy that inspires action, action born from the deepest place of the soul's connection with the divine. In the presence of this joy, the soul feels compelled to share it, to express it, to offer it to the world around it. It is not content to hold on to this joy for itself, but desires to radiate it outward, to spread God's love and peace to every being it encounters. In the eternal communion with God, the soul experiences a deep sense of fulfillment that comes from the knowledge that it is doing exactly what it was created to do. The soul was created to love, to be loved, and to serve as a vessel of God's light. In this divine communion, the soul is fully aligned with its purpose, and in that alignment, it finds the deepest joy. It no longer seeks fulfillment from outside sources, for it knows that true fulfillment lies within its connection to God. This joy is not just an emotional experience, but a spiritual one. It is a deep soul-level knowing that the soul is part of something far greater than itself, a vast interconnected web of divine love that stretches across time and space. In this communion, the soul feels a profound sense of unity with all of creation. It is no longer isolated, but part of a greater whole. It understands that it is not alone in this joy, but that all of creation shares in this divine bliss. The joy of communion with God is the joy of the entire universe, woven together in perfect harmony. In this eternal joy, there is no separation. There is no you and me, no distinction between the soul and the divine. There is only oneness, a unity that is complete and absolute. The soul no longer experiences itself as a separate being, but as an integral part of God's infinite existence. It is no longer striving to reach God, but resting in the knowledge that it is already one with Him. The joy that arises from this union is the joy of knowing that the soul has always been one with God and always will be. As the soul bathes in this eternal joy, it feels a deep sense of gratitude, a gratitude that arises from the sheer gift of God's love. The soul knows that it could never have earned this love, that it is a gift freely given, unearned and undeserved. This realization fills the soul with awe and reverence for God, who has chosen to share His love in such an intimate, personal way. The soul is humbled by the gift of communion with God and can do nothing but offer its deepest thanks and praise. This joy is not a fleeting moment, but a constant, ever-present reality. It is a joy that the soul will carry with it for all eternity, a joy that cannot be taken away or diminished by time or circumstance. It is a joy that transcends all earthly understanding, for for it is rooted in the eternal love of God. The soul knows that no matter what happens in the future, no matter what challenges or joys may come, this divine joy will always remain. It is the joy of knowing that the soul is eternally safe in the arms of its Creator, and that this love will never end. As the soul continues to bask in the eternal joy of communion with God, it is filled with a deep sense of purpose and peace. It knows that it is exactly where it is meant to be, doing exactly what it was created to do. This joy is not dependent on external circumstances, but on the soul's eternal connection with God. The soul has found its home, its true identity, and in this knowing, it is filled with a peace that surpasses all understanding. In this divine communion, the soul experiences the fullness of God's love. It is no longer incomplete, no longer searching for something to fill the emptiness within. It is whole, fully alive in the presence of God's love. And this wholeness is the source of its joy. The soul knows that it will never be separated from God, that this communion will last forever. And in this eternal joy, the soul finds its true purpose, its true meaning, and its true happiness. Part 14. The divine purpose, living as an instrument of God's love. As the soul continues its eternal journey, it begins to recognize its divine purpose, to be a vessel, an instrument of God's love in the world. This purpose is not a task that is assigned from the outside, but a deep inner knowing that arises from the soul's connection with its Creator. It understands that its life is not its own, but a sacred opportunity to share God's love, compassion, and grace with the world around it. This realization brings with it a profound sense of responsibility, but also a deep sense of fulfillment. The soul knows that it is here to do God's will, to embody His love in every action, every word, every thought. In the presence of this divine purpose, the soul is filled with a profound sense of peace. It no longer feels lost or adrift, for it has discovered the reason for its existence. The search for meaning, the yearning for purpose, dissipates as the soul understands that it was always meant to be a reflection of God's love. Every moment of existence becomes sacred, for each moment is an opportunity to express that love in the world, whether through a kind word, a compassionate act, or a moment of silent prayer. The soul knows that every action it takes is part of the divine plan. This purpose is not bound by the limitations of the physical world. It is not dependent on success, recognition, or achievement. The soul understands that its worth is not determined by what it does or how it is perceived by others, but by the love it carries within. In the divine plan, even the smallest act of kindness, the most humble service, holds eternal value. The soul no longer seeks validation from external sources, for it knows that its true validation comes from God alone. It is enough to live in His love and to share that love with others, knowing that in doing so, it is fulfilling its highest calling. The soul begins to recognize that it is not alone in this divine purpose. It is part of a vast, interconnected web of souls, each carrying the same mission to spread God's love. Together, these souls form a collective force of divine grace that radiates throughout the world. This unity is not based on similarity or uniformity, but on a shared commitment to God's love. Each soul, with its unique gifts and perspectives, plays a vital role in the divine plan. The soul understands that it is not competing with others for love or success, but working alongside them to fulfill a greater purpose. In the divine purpose, the soul finds its true strength. It is no longer weighed down by the burdens of self-doubt or fear. It understands that its power comes not from its own efforts, but from its connection to God. It is an instrument of His will, guided by His wisdom and strength. The soul no longer feels the need to prove itself, for it knows that it is already enough. It is enough because it is an expression of God's love, and that love is all that it needs. This divine purpose is not a destination, but a journey. The soul does not see its life as a series of milestones to be achieved, but as a continual unfolding of God's love. Each day is an opportunity to grow in love, to deepen its connection with God, and to become more fully aligned with His will. The soul knows that this journey is eternal, and that it will continue to evolve and expand in love for all time. There is no end to the divine purpose, for God's love is infinite, and there is always more to discover, more to share, more to give. The soul also realizes that its divine purpose is not just about what it does, but who it becomes. It is about the transformation of the heart, the deepening of compassion, the expansion of grace. As the soul lives in alignment with God's love, it becomes more and more a reflection of His nature. It begins to embody His qualities: kindness, patience, forgiveness, humility, and peace. These qualities are not something the soul must strive for, but something it naturally embodies as it becomes more deeply connected with God. It is a process of inner transformation, of becoming more fully who the soul was always meant to be. The divine purpose is not a heavy burden, but a source of profound joy and fulfillment. The soul no longer feels the weight of the world on its shoulders, for it understands that it is not carrying the load alone. God is with it every step of the way, guiding, supporting, and empowering it to fulfill His will. The soul finds joy not in the fruits of its labor, but in the act of loving and serving. It is content simply to be a vessel of God's love, knowing that in doing so, it is fulfilling its highest purpose. As the soul embraces its divine purpose, it begins to see the world through a different lens. It no longer views the world as a place of separation or competition, but as a reflection of God's love. Every person it encounters is seen through the eyes of compassion and understanding. The soul understands that each person is also a part of the divine plan, carrying their own unique purpose and gifts. It no longer judges or compares, but seeks to uplift and support. The soul understands that its purpose is not to fix or change others, but to love them just as they are. In the divine purpose, the soul finds its ultimate peace. It knows that it is doing exactly what it was created to do, and that is enough. It is no longer striving for something outside of itself, but resting in the knowledge that it is already whole. The soul understands that it does not need to seek validation, approval, or success. Its worth is found in God's love alone, and that love is enough to fill it completely. The soul's divine purpose is not a fleeting moment, but an eternal calling. It is the reason for its existence, the highest expression of its true nature. As the soul continues its journey, it will remain steadfast in its commitment to live as an instrument of God's love. Every breath, every action, every moment will be an opportunity to share that love, to embody that love, and to live in the fullness of God's grace. And in this, the soul will find its true joy, its true peace, and its true purpose. Part 15. The unfathomable depths of God's love. As the soul reaches the final stages of its earthly existence, it begins to realize the profound truth that God's love is beyond human comprehension. It is infinite, boundless, and eternal, qualities that defy the limitations of time, space, and human understanding. In these final moments, the soul finds itself drawn into the depths of God's love, as though being enveloped by a presence so pure and vast that it feels as though it could consume the very essence of the soul. This love is not something that can be fully understood through logic or reason. It is a feeling, an experience, a knowing that transcends all earthly limitations. The soul can sense it, feel it, and embrace it with every fiber of its being, but it cannot truly grasp its full magnitude. It is like standing before an ocean whose depths are so deep that even the most advanced technology cannot measure it. The soul is immersed in this love, but it knows that no matter how deep it dives, it will never reach the bottom. This is the paradox of God's love. It is endless, yet it is always present. It is vast, yet it can fill the soul completely. As the soul surrenders to this love, it experiences a deep sense of peace. The fear, doubt, and anxiety that once clouded its heart dissipate. There is no more need for questions, no more longing for answers. In the presence of God's love, the soul simply rests, knowing that it is held in the most tender, compassionate embrace imaginable. It is as though every hurt, every wound, every sorrow it has carried throughout its earthly life is washed away by the sheer force of divine love. In the depths of this love, the soul begins to understand its true nature. It is not separate from God. It is not isolated or alone. It is one with Him, an integral part of His divine plan. The soul has always been a reflection of God's love, even when it did not realize it. And now, in this moment of ultimate clarity, it can see that it has never been abandoned, never been forsaken. It has always been loved, always been cherished, always been a part of the Creator's heart. This love is not dependent on anything the soul has done or failed to do. It is not conditional, nor is it based on merit or achievement. It is given freely, without expectation or judgment. It is the purest form of love, untainted by human flaws or limitations. The soul is not loved because of its actions, but because it is. Its very existence is a testament to God's love, a love that is unwavering, unconditional, and eternal. As the soul embraces this divine love, it begins to realize that it is not the sum of its earthly experiences. It is not defined by the roles it played, the mistakes it made, or the challenges it faced. These things are temporary, fleeting. But God's love is eternal, and in that love, the soul finds its true identity. It is not the body it inhabited, nor the name it was given. It is the divine spark of God's love, a reflection of His grace and goodness. And this love, which has always been a part of the soul, is now fully realized in its depth and richness. In this moment of divine union, the soul experiences a sense of completion. There is no more striving, no more seeking. The soul is whole, and it is at peace. It knows that it has fulfilled its purpose, not through its actions or accomplishments, but by simply allowing God's love to flow through it. The soul has been an instrument of His will, and in doing so, it has found the truest expression of itself. The soul also comes to understand that God's love is not bound by time. While its earthly existence may have been finite, God's love is eternal. It stretches back to the very beginning of creation and will continue on for all eternity. In this love, there is no past or future, only the present moment, where the soul exists in perfect harmony with its Creator. This timeless love is the true source of the soul's peace, for it understands that there is no need to worry about the future or dwell on the past. Everything is held in the hands of God, and He is always present, always loving, always guiding. In the presence of this love, the soul becomes aware of its connection to all of creation. It sees that everything in the universe is an expression of God's love, from the smallest particle of dust to the vast expanse of the stars. All things are interconnected, all things are one in God's divine plan. The soul realizes that it is not separate from the world, but deeply intertwined with it. Every person, every creature, every plant, and every stone is a reflection of God's love, and the soul, in its deepest essence, is one with all of creation. The depth of God's love also brings with it a deep sense of humility. The soul recognizes that it is not deserving of such love, yet it has been given freely. This love is not earned, nor is it based on the soul's worthiness. It is simply a gift that cannot be repaid, but only received with gratitude and reverence. The soul bows before this love, humbled by its beauty and grace. It knows that it can never fully repay God for the love He has given, but it is willing to live in a way that honors this love, to share it with others, and to embody it in every moment of existence. As the soul prepares to enter the fullness of eternity, it does so with the knowledge that it has been held in the depths of God's love. This love has been the foundation of its existence, the source of its strength, and the reason for its peace. It understands that it will continue to exist in this love, to be held in its embrace for all eternity. The soul is at home in God's love, and it knows that it will never be apart from it. In the final moments of its earthly existence, the soul experiences a sense of profound peace and acceptance. It knows that it has completed its journey, that it has fulfilled its purpose, and that it is now returning to the source of all love. The soul is ready to enter the next phase of its journey, where it will continue to be embraced by the unfathomable depths of God's love forevermore. Thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and spiritual growth. May the words shared here bring you peace, clarity, and a deeper connection to the divine. Blessings to you on your path of healing and faith.